sex and money are things we're not supposed to talk about. Women particularly. There's systems in place to ensure you don't know too much about these things.
Yeah.
How else are you going to be someone who's easy to control? So many adults don't have a bank account in their own name, man.
Right.
Or I've never been to a gynecologist. Like,
when you started off, was YouTube paying you for your videos?
No, YouTube still doesn't pay me. YouTube demonetizes content about sexuality,
Oh, they do?
When you cross a certain number of followers and you can command a certain price, that's where you stand to make some money. Or, I've also written a book and done a Spotify exclusive podcast and now have my own brand, so you can also create assets of your own.
Top 3 lessons for other creators who want to enter the space of sex ed.
I feel like I would have given more straightforward advice 2 years ago, but right now, we're all figuring it out.
Yeah.
It's like playing whack-a-mole. You just gotta hope your account's not taken down.
Whether it's with your publishers or whether it's with a brand or it's with investors, how has your mindset towards asking for money changed?
If you don't ask, no one's gonna give it to you. Part of me used to think, why am I even in a position where I have to negotiate? These people should be reasonable. I'm doing so much. They should offer to pay me more. That ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
But if you ask for it, you might be too valuable for them to lose.
Top 3 things that you wish girls could unlearn.
Gosh, so many things.
Hi, I'm Sahiba Bali and welcome to another episode of GirlBoss, a show where we decode how successful women go from 0 to 1 in their fields, in their careers. We talk money, we talk finance, we also do a bit of gappe. Today, I'm very excited because this lady has taught me a lot and I'm really, really happy that she did because it really worked out. She has her own intimacy brand called Leezas. She's an educator, she's an author. She makes powerful content that helps women feel empowered. She's a great content creator as well. She is Leeza Mangaldas. Thank you so much for being here today. Oh my God, that's a mouthful. There's so much that you do.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. And you do so much yourself. I feel like today it's hard to categorize people, right? We all do so many things.
Yeah, that's true.
And everyone's a content creator.
Everyone is. Sex is such a taboo in India. And I'm sure you get this a lot. What made you actually dive, being a female, talking about sex and diving into this industry and creating a career out of it? How does that happen?
I worked in television for a while as a TV presenter because at the time the internet wasn't yet, I'm 34.
Yeah.
I was 21 or whatever in 2011. The internet was not yet some place where people thought you could have a career. Traditional media still had I guess it was the last stage of its stronghold on the public attention. Now who watches TV? I don't even watch TV. But at the time, it felt like journalism might be the avenue via which you can have an audience. It wasn't yet clear that you can bypass all these middlemen and be your own publishing platform, which I eventually have become. Television's so traditional. Nobody wanted a young woman talking about sex on TV.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I ended up hosting. It was a little bit of a... But you learn so many transferable skills. You don't get to choose what you... Often as a 20-year-old, you don't get to choose exactly
But the confidence of being on screen and talking and things that you're actually good at because you did visual media. So you did journalism in the beginning.
I came here and worked as a journalist for several years before I, alongside, started this as a passion project, my YouTube channel.
Isn't it great when your passion project becomes a career and becomes the sole reason why you're earning and you see success and money? When did you start seeing that once you pursued this line?
I've actually never had I've never been an employee.
Okay.
I've always been a self-employed consultant, or however you want to
like a freelance
put it. Yeah, I guess that freelance somehow has the connotation of you don't really do anything, which is really unfortunate.
It is.
But I think that I learned very young. When I was in college, I was on a scholarship. It's super expensive to live there. I didn't have a lot of money. So I was working a job, and you could only, as an international student, work as something on campus. No, it just has to be a university-based job. You can't go get a job anywhere else. So I found that the highest-paying university job was Columbia's tutoring and translating services, where people who would hire a nerdy Columbia student to do homework with their kids. So I was a tutor, and you would be paid by the hour. You'd be paid $60 an hour.
That's
I was
crazy.
like $60 an hour, dude. Yes, and
That's
we
not
paid
even
so
minimum
much
wage.
less.
That's like
no,
way
of course not. Why would you be
beyond.
paid minimum wage? You're like dealing with a 12-year-old doing their homework with them. It's
Wow.
intense.
Yeah.
So minimum wage is unfortunate, but also the work was demanding in the sense that you're one-on-one attention for this
Right,
kid, as
right.
opposed to just sitting at a desk and, like if you were at the reception of the library or something, you
Of
could do
course.
your homework while you sit
Yeah,
there.
you're a proper tutor.
So and I mean, they can, like, there's no security. It's not like you're guaranteed this job. If the parent or the kid is not learning from you, doesn't like
Yeah.
you, you're out, like,
That's so
you just get 1 hour,
interesting. Was it an Indian family?
So I think, no, I did so many, I worked with many families. They were all over the world. But I realized that if you can provide a very good product or service,
Mm-hmm.
if you're extremely competent at what you do, you stand to make more money if you bill for everything you do, as opposed to sit and warm a desk and get a fee, no matter really how good you are or how much you're doing or whether you even do anything.
Yeah.
I think that obviously some people like the security that comes from a predictable monthly income, but I think that also it was interesting to learn early on that if you do something well,
Yeah.
you might stand to earn more money by charging every time you do it,
True.
as opposed to just sitting and like,
Waiting for that
yeah, I mean,
end of month to come and just.
or just like getting a job basically where you might not be put to your best, where some of the time you're warming your desk.
Right,
you know?
right, yeah. Oh, so that's interesting. But when you started off, was YouTube paying you for your videos? Were you
No,
getting-
YouTube still doesn't pay me. YouTube demonetizes content about sexuality,
Oh, they
unfortunately.
do?
Yeah. So there's a lot of red tape on the internet around this. It's very hard to use the automated monetization options. Like,
Of course, there's some words that are blurred out.
lots of censorship. It's
Yeah.
considered not advertiser friendly. So I always had to earn an income elsewhere. Like the platforms themselves have never paid me.
So now,
Negligible. I mean, maybe your content about periods or something will be monetized,
Okay.
but not about sex and pleasure. It's typically demonetized, so it's not a significant source
Right.
of revenue.
so after you started creating content, when did the big check come, and when did you see this career becoming a little profitable for you?
When you cross a certain number of followers and you can command a certain price for collaborations with other organizations or brands,
Yeah.
that's where you stand to make some money. Or, I mean, I've also written a book and done a Spotify exclusive podcast,
Yes.
and now have my own brand, so you can also create assets of your own.
Yeah.
Because I honestly also didn't love working with brands. Some people do like it, but I think especially in the space of sexuality, there's like so few brands I can even stand for. There's a lot of brands in the space that actually prey on people's insecurities. I could make a lot of money if I said yes, but I cannot in good conscience recommend any of that
Fair.
stuff, which is why I started my own brands, because the only products I truly believe in, I think are life-altering and were for me, and that I talked about long before I even ever knew I'd be in a position to start a brand,
Yeah.
were toys and lubricant, because they solve for two of the most common
issues.
a
Yeah.
lack of pleasure and discomfort or pain during sex,
Right.
you know?
Does sex sell?
See, if I wanted sex to sell in the way that sex typically sells, I could, maybe I'd sell more like this. Maybe I should get into every video in a bikini and be like, buy my sex toys.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but I talk about sex the way I would talk about a recipe or the weather or something. Like, it's almost taking the sexy out of it a little, dude. It's like,
Yeah.
bro, like, buy a toothbrush, buy a vibrator, like, it's just gonna make you live a better life.
Yeah.
If you don't care about sexual rights, if you don't care about pleasure and you're just doing this because you would also be happy to sell pickle or peanuts or doorknobs,
Yeah.
go sell pickle, peanuts, and doorknobs. Seriously. I don't know whether sex sells. It's like saying, does food sell? Like, we all want to eat, dude.
yeah.
You know, and most people want to have good sex. So, of course, it sells.
You speak about sex. So about power. You have empowered other people. You've empowered me. I'm sure you've empowered a lot of other people. How important do you think it's for a female to be the master of her own money?
Oh my God, it's so important. And again, I wish it wasn't such a fight for many. Like, I wish that, you didn't have to, that these rights were things you could take for granted. Your sexual and bodily autonomy and your financial freedom are things that should be something that people encourage you to acquire. I wish it was easier for people, is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's all well and good to say, like, all women should make their own money and take charge of their sexual health.
Yeah.
And, but I recognize that most people in their own homes have so many, like, guardrails towards their access to these things.
Right.
That, like, I also think the whole ecosystem, not just women, yes, of course, women strive for this, but like men, parents, whoever else is listening, like, you all have to do things to allow for the women in your life to have easier access to these things. It's so difficult for the person who has been denied access to get access without those standing in the way, making way. Do you know what I mean?
You have multiple sources of revenue, but it can be very unpredictable, right? Some months are better than the other. How do you go and manage that unpredictability of money?
So I think that to a large extent, as I said earlier, I had the more predictable, like, okay, even though I wasn't an employee, I had like regular shows I was hosting. So I knew that for these months that I'm doing this project, it becomes somewhat predictable over time, right? As you ideally get better at what you're doing and more people want to work with you, there's some amount of predictability. It's not as unpredictable as it was when you were 21 by the time you're 31, hopefully, right? If you're able to also create systems for yourself. And I think that what can be nice is that while things can be unpredictable, perhaps faster than you can in a job type of track, sometimes when you're self-employed, your income can also grow month on month, whereas in a job, normally you only get an increment once a year, you know, and it tends to be like less than 20% if you're lucky. So I think that if you do it right, and you have to be motivated also, right? Because you don't get sick leave, you're not getting paid when you're unwell, you're not, like if you are, I think that
the responsibility is on you.
Yeah, there's like freedom and there's also a lack of security. So there's pros and cons to each. And some people have really high paying jobs, man. So good for you then. But many people have very low paying. I think like the starting salaries in India are crazy low.
Very bad,
Crazy low. And in general, we just have too many people and most people are underpaid and overworked. So I think that if you do have an idea, you do believe in something, you are competent and capable and driven to try it out, instead of being afraid, if you can, even alongside your more stable source of income, at least give it a shot. You know what I mean?
100%.
I would never thought that I would ever have turned this into a business or anything. I'm glad that I'm able to, you know, do good while doing good, while doing well or whatever. I don't know, something. But and who knows how it'll go. But I feel lucky that every day I wake up and I'm excited about what I do, because I think over time, an unfulfilling workplace environment or job or whatever, when you're just every day putting so many hours into something you don't care about, that can really be depleting. So I just feel really lucky that, but more than anything, I don't have that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Are there any myths that you would like to break about being a sex educator? Because I'm sure you get a lot of bizarre questions and a lot of bizarre comments. And something you just want to say, no, I am not like this, or no, this is not true.
I think being a sex educator is such an anomaly in India, at least, that most people don't know what to make of it. Like, most people don't know what a sex educator is. I get asked, are you a doctor? Are you a porn star? Like, what do you do? Why do you know this stuff? Like, you know, sex and money are things we're not supposed to talk about. And women particularly, it's almost like there's systems in place to ensure you don't know too much about these things. Because how else are you going to be someone who's easy to control? You know? So many adults don't have a bank account in their own name, man. Or have never been to a gynecologist. Like, get with the program, okay? So I think that we need to do this for ourselves, firstly, right? So I don't care what term you use, or sex educator or whatever, because first of all, I'm just a woman. And just a person. And I think 90% of what I say, you don't even have to be, forget doctor, porn star, you don't even have to be a sex educator to know. You, as a human being,
you should know. You should know. As a female, you should know this, at least about what your body can do. It's like bizarre that...
Not even, this stuff is not medical, dude. This is like the 99% of what I put out there is not even remotely medical. And yet people be like, how are you talking about this? What
it's like awareness, right?
It's like, dude, why don't you know this? Like, my goal is to democratize this information. It should be general knowledge. We should all know about safety, consent, pleasure, our bodies. Like, we should all strive for more gender equality in the bedroom, more openness around a multitude of sexual orientations. This is not too much to ask for. You know what I mean? We just want a more love-filled, pleasure-filled, and equal world. Like, that's where this is coming from. So I don't know whether what people think about sex educators. I think mostly people don't know much about sex educators, but I think we can all get with this goal. Isn't it so sinister that people in power want to control these rights, you know?
So if there's someone who wants to get into this field of either talking about being an educator of sex, or wants to be a content creator, do you think that it is sustainable financially?
I think that content creation obviously is like a multi-billion-dollar industry now globally, but I think it is the ease of creating sex-positive content has actually, unfortunately, instead of becoming easier, it's become harder. So a lot of the platforms always had certain restrictions, like you couldn't monetize the content through their ad systems that allow other creators to monetize simply by making the content, right? Because when you start, maybe you're not getting brand deals. It helps
Even
to
on
get
Instagram?
No, I mean, like when you have like 0 followers, what brand is paying you, right?
Okay.
But ideally, if you're, let's say you're a dance creator on YouTube and you get 20 million views on a video, you also make some pesa per 1,000 views.
Right.
That's chalo, at least something. Maybe you made 20 grand, 50 grand, whatever on that video. So
Yeah.
you can make videos the whole month. And even before you get your brand, in the sense, there's some inbuilt sources of revenue. I think for Indian creators, YouTube revenue is not a significant income source because the CPM in India is just very low.
Really low.
But at least it's something. And in theory, were you in another country, for example, people have become millionaires just with the YouTube revenue, where you're not having to be a billboard for the day for some other brand.
Yeah.
YouTube just serves ads before your video that you have nothing to do with. And you still get money because they come to watch your video, right? That doesn't work out here very well, even when it's all good. When you're creating sex ed content, you usually don't even have the right to. You're not eligible for those things. And now, in the last 1.5 years, unfortunately, these platforms have become like uncles. And not just in India, everywhere. They are, I don't know if you've noticed, but like you can't say the words anymore. People are having to invent words. Your account gets restricted, your content gets taken down. And I always followed the community guidelines, right? There's no nudity in my content, there's no sexual solicitation, there's no pornography. Like, it's not any of that. And not just me, many other creators globally in the space who might be talking about sexuality, identity, things like that. As of the repealing of Roe versus Wade in the US, which was about 1.5 years ago when the whole abortion ban thing happened, I mean, and all these companies are housed in the US, right? I noticed that even organic content, particularly around women's reproductive health and rights, was getting restricted like never before.
That is so unfortunate.
And I mean, anyway, their ad policies and stuff have for a long time been very bizarrely misogynistic. Like you can advertise Viagra, but you can't advertise vibrators. A lot of the policies around what is considered, okay versus not okay tend to be very heteronormative. Queer bodies and queer people are censored disproportionately, trans people as well. And so when you saw all of this anti-SRHR, anti-abortion, anti-trans legislation taking place in America. And all these platforms are also used to advertise for political parties globally, okay?
Oh, no wonder, because whenever I see any ad on sexual wellness, they don't use the main terms that you would use otherwise. They're trying to like...
Exactly, I mean, it's ridiculous. We're in 2024 and we're going backward in some ways.
Right, like you use the word massage instead of vibrator, or instead of
all
sex
of the
toys,
stuff.
you're using something else.
Even just sex, people are saying like horizontal bedroom wrestling,
Oh, that does
or like
make
gappa
sense.
gap.
Yeah.
Dude, it's crazy. It's like, why are we...
That's a thing?
I mean, you gotta come up with code words, you know? It's sad that because what message are you sending? You're reiterating that these are unspeakable things, these are bad things, maybe even illegal things. Sexual and financial agency are seen as such threats to the order. You'd see more women entering the workforce, right? Money increases, education increases, more women get to work. But in fact, when a family moves out of like financial insecurity to a place of financial security, they withdraw their women from the workforce. It's like, we don't need to work now. So this corrupting force work that we were all forced to do because we didn't have enough, now we will deny women that agency, because you were never working for yourself anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's a funny one, right? It's like work is seen as this place where you'll have both financial and sexual agency in a weird kind of way. We don't want women getting too smart and making all these choices and having their own money and like having sex on their terms.
You created a complete different business as well, which is very new to India, I would say, about sexual wellness and sex toys, etc. Saw it in pop culture, saw it in films. It wasn't like India, you could readily buy it. Let's talk about your business. So you started Leezas. Obviously, it's completely up your alley, so it makes sense. How is it going? How did it start?
It's been such a ride. We launched 1 year ago. And so Leezas is actually something I co-founded with a Swedish brand incubator called Basel. A dear friend of mine who now lives in India and has lived in India for 12 years, but is actually Swedish. Her name is Hanna Stromgren. She's been working in various capacities to build brands over the last decade. And I have been in in this sort of like sexual education and pleasure and all of this as a creator.
Yeah.
And we have always admired each other's work and just, when you just have always believed in each other also, like long before we do what we currently do, we always thought we'd do something together. And she was heading this brand incubator. I had my own strong personal brand, and we were just like, here, this is our opportunity. Like, we've got to create a pleasure brand together.
Yeah.
The idea kind of emerged during the pandemic. I think that it took a year and a half or so to just, like, develop
Ideate
the
and
brand
develop,
and like some products that we were happy with and things like that. And we launched in 2023.
Yeah.
And yeah, everyone wants orgasms.
That's great.
So I think that the demand for these products exists.
Do you foresee larger demand coming? How are you, like,
I mean,
you have
I
to
think,
educate
there've
people?
also been people, like, big mainstream, like, MNCs that were doing, like, Durex, something like that. Actually, why am I giving any free publicity to cut? Oh, no, I'm joking. Anyway, big condom brands have, like, some kind of vibrating products already in, like, Kirana stores. You can get, like, a vibrating ring at the
or
pharmacy.
something, yeah.
Like, things have changed. India's a good place to be. You can get good toys easily. But as of 2 years ago, you couldn't, and growing up, I mean, as a young person, whatever, in my 20s and stuff, it wasn't available here, and people would try and get it when they go abroad, bring back for their friends or things like that. And to this day, I think not everybody knows that there's great products easily available or don't feel like sufficiently comfortable using them, but it's rapidly changing. I think, also, like, if you've never used a vibrator, especially for women, and then you have, 9 out of 10 women will have like it is transformative. It is like, oh my, like your third eye has been opened.
Yeah.
So in a way, like, these users become the evangelists. Like,
and they keep telling
like
you
are
have
just like,
to,
oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
this thing I thought was so hard, so near impossible,
Yeah.
is actually so consistently deliverable to me. Like, I can have an orgasm whenever I want in like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Why did I not know this,
No, that's
Why did I not know
completely
this? And it's just like, you can't, like, you got to spread the word.
That's
People
good
want to
marketing
shout
as
it from the
well.
rooftops. I mean, that
Yeah.
was the experience I had when I used a vibrator for the first time.
But considering the prices of such devices, do you have a target audience that's very specific?
We've had to bring the prices down, honestly. 10 years ago, when you were trying to get a product like this on the internet, you were going to have to go through some marketplace that was importing. They were selling it like above 15K per product.
Wow.
It was really hard to get something in India. And trying to buy my first vibrator in India in like 2011.
It was that
I ended up
expensive?
spending like 20 grand. I just like saved for 5 months to buy a vibrator. It's crazy. So we've actually brought the prices down. It's players like us that have helped. I wish it was even cheaper.
Yeah.
But also the electronic products, they're expensive to manufacture. I hope with scale we can, like, I have every desire to make pleasure affordable and accessible. But I also, like, many of these products are going into your body. I can't be using porous materials, cheap materials. Do you know what I mean? There's some amount of
Cost that goes into
cost
it.
that is, unless you have incredible scale, I don't know how to overcome those costs yet, but I am on it. Trust me, like, I want pleasure to not just be for rich people. But many people don't know this, that, like, already to be able to buy a vibrator for like under 5 grand is massive progress. Like 10 years ago, it
that's
used
a
to,
huge
they were
step.
like 20 grand, 30 grand, because you were having to import a Western brand and pay, double the price with customs and this, that, have the prospect of it even not reaching you because customs seizes it. Or, it was also very shady. You were unlikely to get invoices, no customer service. Like, there was some there were either brands without really a proper brand, like some vendor on a marketplace, or some marketplaces housed abroad that were like, it wasn't straightforward.
So now
and
it's
it was
more
much
accessible and
expensive.
more affordable, both.
Of course, there's room for it to be even more accessible and more affordable. But already, trust me, like, we've brought down the prices by disrupting the market and other players like us as well.
Is it easy to find that kind of investment for a sexual wellness brand currently in India? Or do you think there are restrictions where some investors are like, no, not this industry?
I think that, of course, it's a tricky space.
Yeah.
I think different people have different appetites for risk. I definitely think people are venturing into this space, recognizing there's unmet demand, but it is not an easy space to navigate. And I think that people who come into this, I think what I'm seeing is a bunch of people entering the space because they see it as a quick, get rich quick or some, I don't know, blue ocean, so we'll just enter. if you don't actually care about this, like don't enter it. Because
Okay.
it is not easy. If you don't care about sexual rights, if you don't care about pleasure and you're just doing this because you would also be happy to sell pickle or peanuts or doorknobs,
Yeah.
go sell pickle, peanuts, and doorknobs. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, this is not easy to navigate space. It's also a space where you can do more harm than good if you don't actually know what you're talking about. I really think if you want to be an entrepreneur in the sexual wellness space, it should come from a place of actually wanting to make things better in this space.
Fair
Not just from because the challenges are unique. I don't think you'll have the stomach for it also if you don't actually care,
Yeah.
and you stand to do more harm than good if you're
It
not
comes
actually
with a sense of
thinking about the
responsibility
products
for
you're putting
sure.
out.
Yeah. Because it's just not a product.
And I discussed the restrictions on all these platforms. It's not straightforward to be able
Of
to market your
course, yeah.
products. So I think people underestimate that.
Okay, we're going to do a quick rapid fire with Leeza. Leeza, these are going to be questions right up your alley, so don't get nervous. And you're great to talk to, so I'm very excited about this segment. Ready?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Top 3 things that bring you pleasure in life.
Sex, food, art, nature. 4 things.
4 things. Top 3 career moves you are happy that you took.
That I quit TV to become a content creator, that I wrote a book, that I started Leezas.
Ooh. Top 3 things that you wish girls could unlearn.
Gosh, so many things. That your appearance is probably the least interesting thing about you. That you deserve both financial and sexual agency and autonomy, and it is not shameful to have either.
Yeah.
And that marriage is overrated and also something you can opt out of if you want.
Top 3 lessons for other creators who want to enter the space of sex ed.
It's a minefield out there right now with the restrictions. Things have changed a lot. So I feel like I would have given more straightforward advice 2 years ago. But right now, we're all figuring it out.
Yeah.
It's like playing whack-a-mole. You just gotta hope your account's not taken down tomorrow.
Yeah.
So get creative. Let's try and find code words for every sex word out there. But what else? But do it anyway, man. Do it anyway. If you have nothing to lose and you have an alternative source of income and you care about this, just talk about it. Like, the more of us who talk about this stuff, I think the better it is. That's how you collectively just change the dominant perspective.
Nice. One thing you want to tell your trollers.
Dismantle your shame. Probably wouldn't be trolling me if you weren't so ashamed.
Oh, yes. Top 3 biggest financial lessons of your life.
So the power of being your own boss, if you're able to do so effectively, you stand to make more money than you would if someone else is your boss.
Yeah.
Save and invest.
Yeah.
If you can figure that out smartly, that can also just, before you know it, you just have some money in the bank. 10 years flies. So if you start earlier, the younger you start saving and investing, the more likely you are by 30 to have some amount of capital.
Top 3 biggest paychecks.
I think the biggest one's yet to come, Sahiba.
Oh. Top 3 financial mistakes of your life.
I don't want to jinx it. I've been quite cautious, I think. Financially, I've always been cautious. I think maybe also all of the stuff I've already said, I think an appetite for risk, especially when you're young, can also serve you well sometimes. Sometimes you just got to have the balls and believe in yourself. I think my biggest mistake actually has been a lack of self-belief. So other people have made money on me because they bet on the right horse and I didn't take that. Believe in yourself.
Yeah. I mean, if you deserve it, you should ask for it.
Invest in yourself. Yeah, negotiate more also. I feel like it took me, I should have been a better negotiator younger, asked for more money, asked to get paid more, asked to, it almost seemed how can I?
You know what? That's so true, because I think that was also my biggest mistake. If somebody was offering me some kind of my work, I was like, yeah, I will do this for peanuts because you're giving me work.
Exactly. I think both knowing your worth and then adding GST, and also, and also being able to say no to money, being able to make financial decisions that are ethical also, I think is something that's so important.
How have you managed to negotiate, ask for money? Because you said that earlier you couldn't ask for money, and I'm hoping that mindset has changed. Whether it's with your publishers or whether it's with a brand or it's with investors, how has your mindset towards asking for money changed? Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, I think in my 20s, like in my, I was much less confident talking about or asking for money or negotiating for myself.
Yeah.
And I think that and while I used to think it's because I don't yet have a track record, so I'm like having to tell somebody that I think I'm worth X when I don't have much to show for it, whereas today I have all of this stuff to show for it, so like it's easier. And I think maybe in general, young people, unless they've already done something extraordinary in their first job or something, might have less negotiating power than a person further along in their career. But I also think there is a gendered aspect to this where a lot of men are conditioned from a younger age to be more assertive about these things, and women are not.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in general, as a woman, sit with your legs crossed.
My mom says that to me
Be
all
quiet.
the time.
Don't laugh too loudly. Don't wear this. Don't like we're supposed to make ourselves small.
Yeah.
And we do. I mean, I don't even know how to. Sit like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
It
this is very
feels- it
uncomfortable for
feels-
me
it
right now.
feels off.
Because
Yeah.
I just have been so good at being a good girl.
Yeah.
So now I think that unfortunately we got to do that unlearning, and sometimes it takes till 30 or 40 or who knows, because that conditioning is usually present where you don't, you shouldn't upset the apple cart. You should smile and nod, be pleasant. Do you know what I mean? And so I think negotiating can sometimes be a little unpleasant.
Yeah.
You're having to disagree. For me, conflict of any sort, even a negotiation registered like
Just
a conflict.
confrontation in general.
Like saying, no, I disagree, or like, this is what I would like. Asserting your preferences, having differences and asserting
And then they'll
them.
judge you for doing that. Otherwise, they'll be like, "Ugh, she's bitch, she's hard to work with, she's a diva."
I mean, sometimes, but what I'm also realizing is that some people like actually like ask and you shall receive.
Yeah.
Like if you don't ask, no one's going to give it to you. Like part of me used to think like why am I even in a position where I have to negotiate? Like these people should be reasonable. I'm doing so much. They should offer to pay me more. That ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you ask for it, you might be too valuable for them to lose, and they might give it to you.
My dad told me
you know?
this. He's like, what's the harm in asking? Just ask.
Ask,
and then
exactly.
see what happens.
And you
But
can
what's the
ask
harm?
politely, you can ask, but firmly. Do you know what I mean? I feel like there's also...
Like, I deserve this. You would pay probably a counterpart X amount. Why am I getting any less? But do you think you have to use metrics to kind of validate your statement now that, I deserve X amount of money because ABC?
I mean, I think regardless of gender, when somebody's negotiating their CTC or if they're raising funds or whatever, anyone's going to ask you to be able to back why you're...
Right.
It typically comes from a place of like, what value is this investment going to generate? Whether it's an investment in a person or in the company itself or whatever it is, what can you bring to the table, right? And sometimes it's not so easy to tangibly, like rupee for rupee, be like, you're paying me this and your company will make this because you have me.
Yeah.
But I think that it helps if you can make very evident the value you bring. Sure.
Yeah.
Right? Just like you would have to when you're even buying an item from a store, there's like all this information about the products, you can make an informed decision. And ultimately, unfortunately, I hate to commoditize human beings, but to a large extent, the capitalist workforce is a marketplace. You know what I mean? And so you're having, otherwise, why are we even getting paid salaries? Like, whether we like it or not, we're selling goods and services, and we have to sort of establish the value of these goods and services. And I think that some people make false claims, some people are very good at marketing and exaggerating even, and whatever. And some people maybe are not good. Like you're getting a steal when really they should be being paid their worth. So it's a funny thing, but when you make that analogy to even products, like, there's some things that are overhyped and people are still paying for it, and some things that are incredible.
So from accounting books, let's come to your book. I wanted to understand, how does one actually have a passion project and turn it to something like a publishing aspect, an asset that you have? How is the feeling to get a book in your hands and actually share it with the world?
I was excited to be able to do it. I'd always been super nerdy, wanted to write a book at some point in my life. But then HarperCollins commissioned the book and
one of the best publishers in the world.
We want you to write a book. So I was like, okay.
So they approached you?
So they approached me. There was a time during the pandemic or right after where my content was really exploding. And suddenly like all of this attention came my way, where I got a podcast deal and a book deal and this and that. The moment when I stopped doing all of the other work I was doing and really decided I'm going to give this all my time because it was starting to take all my time as well. You can't write a book while you also have a job and also host a podcast. You know what I mean? There's only so many hours in the day. So I think that's when I like took that leap of faith of like, okay, I'm going to quit the other stuff I'm doing so I can focus on this full time.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have like had a book ready and thought about it 3 years ago. It took HarperCollins to come to me for me to think like, yes, I should write a book. So I'm glad all these people, I mean, I'm so glad opportunities came to me.
Yeah.
And people were betting on me. But in a funny kind of way, often it felt like, what? They want me to write it? They want me to start a company? Like, oh, me? Little old me, you know? Whereas like some people have such conviction in their own, I will do this. It's not to say that I was just twiddling my thumbs, you know, and a book deal fell in my lap. Not at all.
Of course, you're working on other aspects.
I just think that it took me, one of the mental things I had to rework because we were talking about like getting good at negotiating this, that, was like seeing yourself as worthy, you know, instead of the like imposter syndrome always in your head, which I think a lot of young people and a lot of women struggle with.
All women on this podcast who have come have spoken about imposter syndrome because I think every female faces it.
Yeah, like instead of doubting yourself when something you've worked damn hard for finally comes through, like feeling good about it and feeling like you deserve it and that you're gonna, you know what I mean?
No, 100%. And I mean, I'm really happy we had this conversation. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. One last question we always ask everyone. It's a fill in the blank.
Okay.
Okay. Being a girl boss is?
I know the phrase like conveys what it's meant to, but hopefully one day we can just be bosses or everyone aspires to be a girl boss. Like, you know?
Yeah, fair.
Bill Gates, what a girl boss.
I love it. Yeah. Everyone who's listening, I really hope you heard this with an open mind and open heart. Because Leeza shared a lot with us. I learned a lot. And would you like to tell them to comment?
Like, share, subscribe.
And thank you. Tell us in the comments who you want us to bring as a next guest, any questions you have, and keep watching GirlBoss on 01.